In a recent video, I took two of Survival Horror's biggest video game legends in Isaac Clarke and Leon Kennedy, and I swapped their places to see if they could survive each other's games. And today I'll be doing something kind of similar, but with a Helldiver fire team from Helldivers 2. And that's right, I said fire team. It's not going to be a single Helldiver because I'm just going to keep it real. One Helldiver is not going to cut it at all. So we're going to take a team of 4 and throw them through the events of Dead Space 1 to see if they can survive. And for those of you who don't know, the main reason I'm choosing 4 Helldivers specifically is because that's what the game deems as a full fire team. And as for the setting, we'll be putting them on the USG Ishimura from the original Dead Space. Now normally with the scenarios, I usually tweak things to make them slightly different. So for example, when we put Leon on the Ishimura back a couple videos ago, I just said that, he's not Isaac, he's not going to try to fix the ship or go fight the Hivemind or do any of these things. He's just going to want to get off of the ship, and that's going to be his main objective. However, when it comes to the Helldivers, their entire purpose for fighting is to end any alien existence that could be a threat to humanity. So of course, they're not going to just be trying to get off of the Ishimura as fast as possible. They're going to want to exterminate every single Necromorph and get down to Aegis 7 and take out the Hivemind. So we're going to be putting them through the exact same journey that Isaac went through, from the beginning of the Ishimura all the way down to the planet's surface. Just like in those previous videos, I'll be making it so that any ammunition that the divers find aboard the Ishimura is ammo for their specific equipment and weapons, because obviously once again, if they just can't use their weapons, they just die, and that's, kind of the end of the video, so that's not very fun to talk about. And with Helldivers 2 being an ever-evolving and changing game with constant new updates and content drops, with it being live service and everything, I'll only be talking about weapons and equipment from the recently released Freedom's Flame Warbond and anything before that. So if you're watching this months ahead and there's some crazy new powerful weapons or armor or something, I just don't know about it. And with all of that intro stuff out of the way, guys, if you end up enjoying the video, don't forget to leave a like, maybe drop a sub on the channel. Helps me out in the algorithm. I would greatly appreciate it. And without further ado, let's talk about if the Helldivers can survive the events of Dead Space.
Now, where is she? There she is. We have visual contact.
So that's Ishimura. Impressive.
The USG Ishimura. Biggest planet cracker in her class. And it looks like they already popped the cork.
Now right off the bat, I know what some of you guys might be thinking. In the original Dead Space, we already saw a group of military personnel get taken out by what was essentially a single Necromorph, and we saw something similar happen in Dead Space 2 on the Sprawl. So what makes Helldivers so much more capable and gives them a higher rate of success for fighting these Necromorphs than the military personnel we see in the Dead Space universe? Well, the first thing I want to point out is the fact that they were armed with pulse rifles, which seems to be the standard carry for security and military personnel. Also, thanks to some comments from you guys, I learned that the pulse rifle fires a very low caliber round, which explains why it seems to be so ineffective compared to Isaac's other weapons. Unlike EarthGov forces, even most of the weakest Helldiver weaponry fires armor-piercing rounds, including the standard AR-23 Liberator, while also having access to plenty of other stronger firearms. Both of the main enemies the divers go up against always have some form of armor, whether it be the Terminid's bio-armor or the machines just being, machines. When it comes to the Necromorphs, head and center of mass shots do almost nothing to them, so in order to effectively take them down, you have to dismember them one limb at a time. But the question is, would the divers even know to shoot for the limbs, and if they don't, would they survive long enough to even figure that out in the first place? Well, considering the fact that the third room you enter after your first encounter with Necromorphs has a message telling you to cut off the limbs, I would say it's pretty likely. Even if they have something like the Liberator, which can shred through light Terminid armor, it would easily cut apart and dismember fleshy Necromorphs. And we know that Necros are pretty weak to fire due to Isaac being able to use a flamethrower and it being pretty effective, and many of the divers' various weapons deal burn damage, such as the Breaker Incendiary Shotgun, which fires both AP and incendiary rounds, or even having straight up flamethrowers themselves. The divers also have weapons like the Eruptor, which fires explosive rounds capable of taking out multiple armored enemies at once with a single shot. or even energy-based weapons similar to many of Isaac's tools, such as the Scythe, which seems to work similarly to the Contact Beam in Dead Space Remake, firing a stream of concentrated energy. Most weapons in Helldivers rip chunks or limbs off of armored enemies anyway, so most should have an even easier time with Necromorphs.
Orbital inbound! Another triumph for managed democracy. May liberty guide your safe destruction.
When it comes to the durability of the Helldivers, they're able to tank a few laser blasts from machines and a couple hits from lesser Terminids that, similar to Necromorphs, use their claws to rip apart their foes. They likely have a relative durability to Isaac himself, being able to take a few hits from slashers and various other Necromorphs before going down completely, with stratagems such as the energy shield giving them much more protection. However, it's debatable on if the Helldivers would be able to call in stratagems really at all. For those unaware, all divers have destroyer ships which they use to call down heavy weaponry and support equipment from space onto whatever planet they're fighting on. Since we're not on a planet but on a ship in space, I'm not sure if there's a way for them to safely call them down without decompressing part of the ship. So either they would have to start with whatever stratagems we equip them with, or likely just not have any at all. But even if we allow them to start with stratagems, there's quite a lot that just have no way of working on the Ishimura. Any aerial attack from the Eagle isn't usable, orbital weapons like the orbital laser or rail cannon isn't possible, and the exosuits are way too big to fit through most parts of the ship, so they'd only be able to bring or summon equipment they can carry, or things like turrets. I think one major issue the team will face are areas of the ship exposed to the vacuum of space and zero-G areas. As far as I know, Helldiver suits don't have built-in oxygen tanks, so as far as I'm aware, entering these areas will mean death for the entire team. I'm also unsure how they would manage to fight and maneuver through the multiple zero-G areas, but since they're basically space marines, I'm sure they have some form of experience with zero gravity. Another issue we run into is the influence of the marker, which has the ability to drive people mad, attack their friends, or even finish themselves off. The level of resistance kind of varies from person to person. Some people can stay sane much longer than others, so it's really a toss-up on if the divers would lose it or not. Maybe some would and others wouldn't. It's possible to go insane and wound or kill the other two, or that none of them lose themselves at all. But it's really all speculation when talking about how fast or how much the marker would really affect them. The Hunter could also be a problem with there not being a way to permanently take it down during the first couple of encounters. That being said though, most of the weapons the divers have would probably easily tear it apart, giving them time to get away until they can eventually make it to the shuttle and put it down for good. There's also the Weezers in the Arboretum and the Leviathan in food storage, with really the main issue here being the fact that it doesn't seem like divers have air filters or oxygen tanks in their suits, so they could be completely cooked when it comes to this entire section of the ship. Now, if they somehow make it past all of these obstacles and touch down on Aegis 7, it's smooth sailing, because since they're now on the planet's surface, they have full access to all stratagems, exosuits, orbital lasers, 500 kilogram bombs, everything, making the Hivemind and the last remaining Necromorphs a complete cakewalk. Whether the Helldivers survive or not is up to a lot of speculation and variables. Do they get access to stratagems? Do you think the divers have oxygen tanks in their suits? How fast does the marker influence take effect? It's kind of weird because in this situation the Necromorphs for the most part aren't really the real threat, it's the numerous environmental hazards and the marker. If you're very charitable with the Helldivers and believe they can breathe in space, have access to some of their stratagems, and come prepared with the right equipment, I think they have a very high likelihood of surviving. But you do have to be pretty generous with them and give them access to things that may or may not be outright confirmed to be canon. So in conclusion, if you were to ask me if I think the Helldiver fire team could survive the events of Dead Space 1, I would probably say no, and ironically it's not because of the Necromorphs or the enemies they have to fight, but just all of the environmental hazards and other factors that are at play. Like, do they go insane? Can they breathe in space? Just all of that stuff we talked about. It's just an unknown to me. I'm not sure how they would deal with it or if they could deal with it. And at the end of the day, I think those things are going to be problems that they might not be able to overcome, rather than the Necromorphs being the real problem. Which, funny enough, for a lot of these swapped places type of things, is usually the biggest issue. But you guys let me know down in the comments below if you guys think the Helldivers could survive, and I'll see you guys next time.